Everybody, Jonathan, Las Vegas Collectibles. I'm actually going to do something a little different today. So normally something's going on with this OBS thing. Hold on one second. What the hell's happening? Go away. That was weird. Anyways, normally I talk about like collectibles, comic books, trading cards, sports cards, things like that. And today I've decided I'm going to talk about something I don't talk enough about. And it's going to be about my experiences in the military. And the reason this came about is last week, Thursday, so it's been 8 days, I got jaw surgery. I already got the rubber bands off. The doctors were extremely excited about how straight and aligned my jaw was. So they're giving me the benefit of the doubt that I'm not going to screw it up. And they took the rubber bands and they took the screws out on Wednesday. So it's been 2 days since then. And I've been sharing a lot with family and friends as far as like photos of the scarring, the swelling, me just looking like an idiot, the rubber bands. And I'm going to tell you the story of how I jacked up my jaw. Like my daughter, who's 3.5 months old, about to turn 4 months old, when she actually decides in her life that whether or not she will care about my wife's, her mom's history as far as our experiences, we might be at that age where we start forgetting a lot of stuff. Like I've already started forgetting some of the stuff. And so I believe this is very important for anybody out there who has a story to tell, whatever it is, especially if you want to pass that story on, document it somehow, record it, do something, verbalize it on a recording, write it down, do something. And so this video is actually meant, and more than anything else, for my daughter. So that way she'll know what happened. And then she can, it's a part of her history too. Like, she's a product of our history as well. So yeah. So this one goes out to my daughter. I was stationed in Germany. See, Germany right here. We got orders to go to Iraq, Operation Iraqi Freedom, all that good stuff. I forget what it was, New Dawn, or I don't even know what it was, but 2005. So we go down. We were actually stationed. Our base of operations was in Kuwait. There's a base in Kuwait where basically the U.S. military, right, because we need stuff to fight with. We need Humvees, we need vehicles, we need weapons, we need beans and bullets. You need food, you need fuel, you need uniforms. You just need everything. You need paper, right? Like you need to be able to write stuff down. You need the littlest, dumbest things. You need washers, you need supplies, you need corrugated, right? You need different boxes. Like you just need stuff to fight a war. You don't just go over there with what you can carry and then do stuff, right? I mean, this isn't a video game. You don't come up on waypoints of resupply that comes out of the floor in magical boxes, right? Like you have to get stuff to where you want to fight. And so the United States has bases all over the world, and they ship stuff to the nearest friendly spot to wherever they're going to fight. We're fighting in Iraq. What's the nearest friendly spot around Iraq? It's Kuwait. Right? So we would ship stuff into Kuwait. So our base, where we were, where our orders created our duty station during our deployment, was technically in Kuwait. So what ends up happening is we end up going to Kuwait and we load up convoys, right? I was an 88 Mike. I was trained to be a truck driver. I'm also 6'2", and at that time, a very lean, like 185. I was pure muscle. I was like, dude, I was a freaking, man, I felt good about myself. And we're talking about 17 years ago. That time is gone. But man, I felt good about myself back then, right? And so I was also one of the backup gunners, right? So I was also trained because I was a big dude. So they put the big dudes with the big guns, right? Because they're heavy. That's all it is. And so I was one of the backup gunners. And so I go down there, and my mission is to drive trucks. I'm not an NCO. Was I even a specialist at the time? I was like an E3 or a specialist. And something else I should look up and get right down for the history books for my daughter at some point. But we go down, stuff would come in from all over the world, from all the American bases and everything else. Contractors make a lot of money during war, and we would load them onto 915s, right? 18 wheelers, big rigs, whatever you want to call them. So we called them 915s, and we would load up at either the airport or the seaport, right? Depending on how the cargo got there. We load up all the stuff and we would drive it into Iraq to support the war. And so our main job was to move in and out battalions, right? Like not just like 20 people, freaking entire, but like enormous amounts of people that all need things and stuff. We would move in tank battalions, right? So we would have to move in all their tanks. Tanks don't drive into the country. They get loaded onto trucks, and then the trucks drive them in, right? So it's a lot more than what people ever think when it comes to war, okay? So we load up, and we would drive it in. So when we got down here, we set up our little supply area, or staging area, where we're going to park our trucks and blah, blah, blah. And then we start our mission. And so you would load up and you would drive from here, from Kuwait, somewhere down here. I forget exactly where the base was. But we would drive all the way through Iraq, and we would stop in different areas depending on the mission. We went everywhere. Every single freaking city, everywhere. So this mission, 2005. So even though our orders were Kuwait, we were only ever there maybe 4 or 5 days a month. Maybe, right? The only time we would go back there is to service the trucks and reload. But most of the time we're over here, just driving, because it would take 7 days to get to Mosul. 6-7 days to get to Mosul. It would just take forever. And so one of these missions, we got this convoy. This convoy, I want to say, was like 100 trucks. And so, by the way, 100 truck convoy is beyond the horizon. You cannot see the beginning or the end. If you're in the middle, you cannot see the beginning of the convoy or the end of it. It's too long. It's ridiculous. Huge convoys. So this mission, I'm a gunner. So one of our very first missions that we ever got when we got down in Kuwait, we go across the border and we're dropping off supplies. I forget. I don't even think it was Baghdad. I feel like it was halfway up. We had names for all these bases along the way, and I'm not going to say them all because I don't know if I'm allowed to. So I'm not going to. But anyways, we're dropped off supplies, and when we got back to Kuwait, we get down, we start unloading everything. We start freaking just kind of, we're out of there, taking off the armor finally, and your uniform would just be rigid because of the salt, because of all the sweat you would drink. Oh my God, it was ridiculous. So much sweat. And this is DCU times, if you know what that means. So one of the very first missions we get back, our convoy commander, like we get back, we're driving trucks, right? So we pull in, and our convoy commander's out there just yelling at the gunner and his gunner. And I, from my understanding of what happened, there was a situation and the gunner didn't do what the convoy commander expected. And so he was fired on the spot. And fired in the military means you just relieved of that duty and you're put somewhere else. And so, of course, I'm in the background of my convoy commander unloading the truck, and he's like, Munoz. That's my last name, by the way. And he's like, Munoz, you're my new gunner. I'm 6'2", I'm a big dude. He's like, you're a big dude. You did weapons training, right? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, come here. And so I was like, bye. Like I was telling him, one of my other friends at the time, I was like, I guess I'm not part of this truck anymore. And I was the gunner. So I was the 50 cal gunner from that moment on. And so on this long mission to Mosul that we're doing in 2005, later on in the year, we are driving. And so at this time, most of the roads were dirt, freaking dirt. Okay. Dirt. And we're out in some middle of the hell nowhere, because we didn't just take the highway. So there is a road. Oh my goodness. I can't even tell you specifically where, but there is a road somewhere over here. And it is all dirt. And we're going through. And we're just driving in the middle of the desert. And by this time, we're going, this is probably day 2 or 3. I want to say it's day, that's not even true. God, see? In 10 more years, in 20 more years, the details of my life are going to be lost. And I'm not going to be able to tell them exactly how it was, which is unfortunate. My daughter's going to miss out on a lot of that. But anyways, we're driving up here. We're out in the middle of nowhere, but it was about 13 hours into the day. 13 hours? No, 13 hours is when we got there. So it must have been like, it was more than halfway through the day. So let's say it was like 8 hours into the day. And I'm in the lead gun truck, right? I'm lead gun truck 50 cal gunner, standing up in this turret. And so this is before name tape defilade. That's a thing. So if you're familiar with what that means, this is before that was even, nobody cared about this. This was the year when a lot of the gunners were getting decapitated, because when we would stand up there, terrorists would put garrote wire, or real thin wire, underneath bridges, the very few bridges that they had, but they would put them underneath bridges, so right at the necks of gunners. And so there was a lot of decapitations going on. A lot of gunners were getting shot. And so eventually, because of all that, they were like, oh, well, we should come out with new rules, new ways of building gun trucks, right? And so they came out with name tape defilade. And they ended up building very up-armored Humvees later on. And so I was part of that generation of gunners that were just idiots, basically. And I had one of those Mad Max Humvees. It was a 998. I believe that was the right nomenclature. And it was just a hole cut out of the ceiling. They put a 50-gallon oil drum that was welded into a ball bearing turning. It wasn't even a mechanism, but I mean, I guess technically it is, but it was just ball bearings, and it was sitting on top of that, and there was no real locking device or anything. It was horrible. So like when the wind caught it right, it would spin the turret, and so I had to grab onto the handles that they welded onto this thing, and I'd have to fight the wind because we're going 55 miles an hour. Trucks were governed at 55 miles an hour, so that's the fastest they would go. And so like I had to hold on to it, like just hold it and try to control it through the wind, especially during turns or like anything, especially slow turns. Oh my god, slow turns were the worst, because like it's just like you're just holding it for like minutes. It's the worst. And have a lot of upper back problems, shoulder problems, lower back problems, spasms like crazy. I have a lot of issues because of all this crap that I went through, because you're young and dumb. And we're going through this dirt up here, right on this mission. Lead convoy driver. So there are areas of this desert. I can't tell you exactly where I was, but there are areas of this desert that are extremely flat. And when the sun is beating down, you start seeing that the heat waves coming off the ground. You get that mirage thing in the distance. And then if you're really tired and dehydrated, no matter how much you drink, you're dehydrated. And God, so it's just one of those horrible days. And so it's extremely flat. You're going 55 miles an hour through the desert. And the reason that's so important that I keep saying the desert, because it's dirt. It's not like it's a paved road. It's super easy for anybody to manipulate or do something evil. And there was there's just oil out there, by the way, guys. There's just oil out there. Like you'll be in the desert, you'll be driving by, and you'll see this like this liquid in the distance. You're like, is that water? And you're like, that's not water. It's just freaking oil, right? So like you're driving through these oil fields, and it's not oil fields like, with those pumps that look like those bird things that don't ever stop dipping. You dip, and so it's a separate thing if you don't know what that is. But anyways, so there's oil fields and like these mirage heat waves and stuff. And so my job is to keep an eye out for evildoers, right? For the bad guys that are trying to freaking blow us up and stuff. And so my eyesight was fixed on like half a mile out, right? Like I'm looking because it's a flat desert, so you can see so much. My main job at that moment was to keep an eye out on the horizon to look to see if anybody's coming, if I could see any silhouettes, if I see anybody standing up, right? Like something weird that doesn't make sense, that doesn't fit the area, fit the environment. And every now and then, every few seconds or so, I look down, I look close to make sure I'm not missing anything, and then I'm back to just scanning the horizon, right? And I was a very hard target, right? Like so what that meant was I was a person who was always at the ready. I was always standing. I'm always at the ready. My fingers are on the butterfly, all my thumbs, my fingers were under the butterfly because that's your only safety is your actual hands. And I'm ready. I don't care. 8 hours, bring it on. 13 hours, bring it on. I'm up there. Don't care. Standing, ready to go. And I was determined to be the hardest target for somebody to try to attack because I wanted them, it sounds screwed up, I wanted their focus to be on any other convoy that looked like a softer target. And so if you're a hard target, that means you're a target in which it's hard for the enemy to attack. And so the whole idea is it's kind of like that rule when it comes to survival when you're being chased by a bear. You don't have to be faster than the bear. You just have to be faster than the person next to you. So I don't have to be the most amazing, accurate 50 cal gunner in the world. I just have to present as a harder target than the convoy that's coming up next. Because they're going to attack the soft convoy. And as jacked up as that might sound, I was going to keep my people as safe as I possibly could. That's the only way that I can mentally survive in the game, right? In the game of war. And so I was up there, man. I was ready to go. So my eyesight on the horizon, ready to go. So the problem with driving in the desert is when they cut holes out in the makeshift road, in the dirt, you don't see them until you're on top of them, because even the hole is the same color as the road because it's just dirt. It's not like asphalt was tore up and then you can see a color variation. It's all just brown with heat waves and the sun's right on top of you. So it's not like there's like shadows or something. So they ended up digging out. Of course, I don't have anything that's really like, I should have prepped more on this. But so you're driving on a flat road, heat waves, blah, blah, blah. So you don't see anything. Going 55 miles an hour. And I'm focused out into the world. And so the road is flat. And so they would, and we didn't know this was even a strategy of theirs. We didn't, just like the garrote wire, piano wire, whatever you want to call it, to decapitate people. You don't know that's a strategy of the enemy until it starts happening and you hear about it. You're like, oh, that dude died from a wire under a bridge? I got to start ducking under bridges, right? Oh, man, I would get the willies, man, if I was so like zoned out and just focused on the horizon where I went under a bridge and I looked back and I'm like, did I not duck under that bridge? And then I'd get the willies, man. Dude. But anyways, so you don't know tactics until they happen to somebody else, basically, right? So they dug a trench in the road straight down, and it was a small trench, very small. Hold on one second. I'm trying to put the baby to sleep, so I'm going to be whispering. So they dug out trenches straight down, and the trench itself was just barely wide enough for a Humvee, a 998 wheel to go in. And so because we're going 55 miles an hour, right, just zooming down, when we went into the trench wasn't deep enough for the Humvee to get stuck, but it was deep enough for the Humvee to slam down. And because it was so narrow, it was shallow and narrow, and because it was so narrow, the Humvee went in, and then popped out. But it still had inertia, right? Forward momentum. And so when it landed back down, they were smart enough to dig a second trench. And so it went back down in. Perfect timing, right? It's like they knew exactly the mathematics of where to dig 2 trenches. The tires went back into a second trench. So the Humvee went in, popped out, in again, popped out, and then came down and bounced. It didn't flip. We didn't roll. It was just violent 55 miles an hour. And those 2 trenches, I think, were the beginning, maybe not the absolute beginning, but, well, no, it's the beginning of my most serious physical injuries. So I am standing straight up, thumbs on the trigger, right, ready to go. My fingers under the safety, and scanning out into the horizon, but looking down every couple seconds. And so when I looked down and I saw the trenches at the last minute, all right, life with a newborn, right? And so like I was saying, I'm standing up there and I saw it. I saw the trenches moments before we go into them. And my body's reaction was basically brain saying, oh shoot. And so my hands are like this. They're out in front of me on the, ready to go. So I start pulling them in. Right? I start pulling them into my body. And my brain says, protect the body, protect the heart. And so my arms were going into like a crash position, I guess, like a instinctual crash position. So they're going in like this. But by the time we hit the first one, so if you think about me standing and then we go into a trench, my body gets slammed forward really, really fast because my body standing up there is still going 55 miles an hour, right? And so right in front of me is a 50 cal machine gun, solid steel. And so my left arm does get in front of my chest. My right arm does not make it for whatever reason, my reaction, whatever. But my left arm is right here. This gets smashed by the 50 cal. And of course I'm wearing armor. So my arm gets smashed in between a 50 cal, which if you've seen a 50 cal, the buffer assembly has, the spring assembly. There's this, it doesn't even matter. There's a knob out the back and it gets smashed into my forearm, and my arm's right here against my armor plating, which is on my chest. And that's the dumbest instinct you can have when you're wearing armor plating, because obviously your chest is going to be fine. But that's what my brain did. It brought in my arm, and so I had a fracture right here, confirmed by X-ray and everything else later on. And so I had a fracture right there. But that's what I remember. I remember going, oh shoot. Actually, that's all I remember. I don't even remember pulling in my arms, but it was obvious from the indentation where my arm was later on. So my memory was, oh shit. And then I wake up to my convoy, like I'm in the back seat of a Humvee, which during wartime, and I was the gunner, the only thing back there is like water, energy drinks, MREs, and more ammo. So I'm laid out on the ground, and my body is like this. The driver's seat is in front of like here, so I'm like this, and my convoy commander's on top of me looking down. He's out the door with his head over my head, and he's like this. His eyes are looking at me, and he's like, "Wake up, Munoz, wake up!" And And so I had gotten knocked out. And I don't know how many times my body got thrown around like a rag doll in that turret. I have no idea. I do know that I could barely breathe when I came to. But of course, I also know that in 2005, I was 21 years old. And I wasn't even 21 years old by that time. I was 20 years old at that time of the year. And so, of course, I'm an idiot that thinks I can survive forever and I got this. Don't worry about it. And so, like, I start breathing. I come to, and everything's okay. And he's relieved, and everybody's relieved. And I remember one of my best friends at the time, another dude named Jonathan, actually. He was the lead convoy truck. I was the lead convoy gunner, so I'm right in front of him. He saw this whole thing, and he's outside of his 915 just laughing his balls off at me, just like he's like, you got jacked up, dude. And I'm like in so much just pain throughout my entire body, and I'm just like looking at this dude like, what a douche. And but that's how dudes are, like, especially a lot of testosterone in the world, you know, down there. And like that's like, ah, you got jacked. Like, it wouldn't have been funny if I died. Although that jerk, he probably still would have been laughing. But so I'm unconscious. I come to, I can breathe, but I couldn't open my mouth. I mean, everything hurt. Back hurt. Everything freaking hurt. Okay. Bloody nose. Obvious signs of TBI. Back then, that wasn't even a thing, but obvious signs of all those things. And I remember I couldn't open my mouth, but I could breathe. And I was like, I'm okay. I just need time, right? Just need time. I was like, give me some time. And, you know, they already performed their cordon and everything, and securing the area, making sure nobody was around, waiting to blow us up or something. And they cleared the area to make sure the convoy trucks can like go around the trenches into the dirt off of the main dirt road. They got us though. They got me. They didn't even get us. They got me. My driver was a little banged up, not too bad. Wrist hurt, that type of thing, because he was holding onto the wheel. My convoy commander was fine. But yeah, so the reason my jaw ended up suffering so badly, this was Vietnam era Kevlar and Vietnam era chin straps. We used to call it the Vietnam freaking chin strap. So let's see. There it is. Beautiful. Let's see somebody wearing it. There it is. That's good. That is a good photo representation. You see that sucker? So it doesn't really give a from the back angle, but you see how this was the chin strap. It just went from ear to ear underneath the chin with this front piece right here. That was it. That was what was holding on this Kevlar, this helmet, this K-pot, whatever you want to call it. And so this was on top of my head, and this was the only thing holding it down. And we're going 55 miles an hour. So this thing was a natural freaking parachute on my head. And so the only way I can maintain readiness without having to deal with this monstrosity on my head was to cinch this chin strap down as tight as possible, because if it was loose even just a little bit, it would pull up in the wind. You know, every time I would change my head position, and then the chin strap would get loose. And then because the chin strap would get loose, I would have to do this. And that's taking me off of my objective of maintaining a hard target. So the only way that stupid thing would stay on my head going 55 miles an hour. Now, you remember, I'm 6'2". I'm above any kind of wind protection. It's just my head, like a bobblehead, getting caught in 55 mile an hour wind. And so I would have to strap it down as tight as humanly possible so there was no wiggle room. And so I'd be up there with my jaw just shut, chin strapped shut, for hours upon hours upon hours, every single day, with the wind constantly trying to pull it even tighter up into my freaking face. So my jaw was already locked, already good to go, already down. When I would yell at my convoy driver or whatever, whenever I saw something, I'd be like, on the left, on the right. You know, like, it wasn't open communication. It was me grunting. And then it got so bad, even before the accident, it wouldn't even, I would just kick him. And I would step on my convoy commander's hand. He always had his hand right next to my boot. And I would step on 2 to the right, 1 to the left. So if I stepped on him 1, he knew to look left. If I stepped on him twice, he knew to look right. That was it. That was communication. And so I was just, And so when I hit this trench and I got knocked out, I don't know what happened, but that chin strap got tighter than anything known to man. I don't know if my chin ended up hitting on the 50 cal. I know my head hit a bunch of stuff because my head was throbbing. My head was like bruised even after the helmet, sore and like my head was jacked up, and it's just a metal freaking box in there, and my head hit everything. So my jaw was even tighter than ever before. And so this is 2005. My jaw went from being cinched down every day as it was to just being like vacuum sealed, cinched down. And that's how my jaw injury occurred. And so over the last 17 years, I've been just living with it. And, 2008-ish, I want to say it was, because it was the first time I think I went to the VA. Very first time I ever even just went in, and I didn't have a good experience, and I didn't really follow up until like 2012. But in 2008, I remember going, because one of the days before that, besides all the blackout drunk days, my jaw got locked open. So when you have, it's called TMJS, TMJ, I'm not going to even try to remember what it stands for, but it's your joints. And then syndrome or disorder, sometimes I call it. But when you have it really bad, you have a lot of popping, and your jaw can actually get locked open or locked closed. And so one day in 2008, my jaw got locked open. I was yawning on a freeway overpass on the way to my mom's house in San Fernando when I was in California. I'm on this overpass, 118 to the 210 or something like that. And on the overpass bridge, I pull over, into that. There's a right emergency lane, and I start just wailing on my jaw because I'm in tears. Because I can't close my mouth, and it's just so painful. It's being stuck open because of a freaking yawn, and I'm just wailing on my jaw because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I didn't have a course on how to fix your locked jaw. I don't know what I'm doing. All I know is I'm in pain. I need to fix it, and the only thing my brain can think of is punch it. And so I just wailing on it until I finally got it loose. I wailed on myself. It sounds horrible, but so I got it loose, and then I never yawned fully again. There was a couple incidents where I did and regretted my decision, but for the last, I haven't yawned fully since 2008. Because every time I start to yawn, I'm like, oh, and I immediately shut it down. I haven't bitten into a large burger without squishing it first. When I take a bite out of a burger, I have to squish it, and I do this thing where I set it onto my bottom teeth, or I start digging in with my teeth, so I can get my upper teeth in there. I don't take bites out of things like normal people. But 2008 was when the first serious lock happened, and it slowly just got worse to the point where I would lock almost like once a week. I'd get pops, I'd get grinding, everything I would say, every word, every breath I took, that old Sting song, just would destroy it. And I would hear it, and it's horrifying. It's like living in a horror movie, just listening to it. And so finally got this jaw surgery done, which I've postponed actually. I was actually going to go into it for earlier this year in 2022, but I got an amazing job which required me to go to training for 9 weeks, and that canceled out the surgery. So then I had to move the surgery date, and then they wanted to change it. They were like, well, maybe we shouldn't go this extreme. We'll just give you some more steroids and do like an arthroscopic surgery where we just flush it out. And I'm like, I've had arthroscopic surgery before and it sucks. Not going to do that. I'm not going to waste my time with you guys. And I've already had like 3 steroid injections with you guys. So obviously I'm not interested in any of that. I want either the discectomy or I want a full Terminator metal jaw. And we had to reschedule to get the discectomy, which was what I got. And so got the surgery last week. I went in on Wednesday of this week, 6 days later, to get the rubber bands off my face. And it really was just a checkup, but I was doing so well with the alignment, they decided to remove the rubber bands. And the doctor, she walked in, who did the surgery. We chit-chatted for a little bit, and I'm ecstatic because this is the best I've felt in 17 years. And so I'm just happy and thankful she's there, and she's talking to me about what they did, describing what happened. So the left jaw, this joint, was a perforated disc. So the disc was still there, but there were some multiple holes throughout it. So they just cleaned everything, and then they injected a little bit of fat in there to help keep that space open. The right jaw, she started to tear up a little bit. So there's water in her eye, and she's looking at me, and she's like, I don't understand how you were able to open your mouth at all for these past years. Your joints were horrible. And, you know, her tearing up kind of made me start wanting to tear up. And I was just so thankful that she helped me. And she said when we got in there was no disc. And the other doctor that assisted her on everything, he had referred to it as schmutz. And so I try to make light of horrible things. And so, you know, I tried to laugh at the schmutz thing. And she's like, no, it was bad. And she's like, we had to hand sculpt. It's called like candolim or something. When you hand sculpt a bone back into a rounded shape, because yours was so bad, it was like squared off. And the other doctor, he kind of looked down. He's like, yeah, you had a lot of calcite or something growing on it, and it was squared off. And they were like talking about how bad it was, and basically at some point it would have just shattered. It would have just broke. And this is not normal for my age. I am 37 years old. Am I 37? No, that doesn't sound right. I was born in 84. Yeah, I'm 37. I'm about to be 38. I'm 37 years old. This is not normal stuff. She does not understand why my joints were this horrible. They operated on a woman who was in her 60s, late 60s, and her jaw was way better than mine. And they did this the day before me. She was actually in the office. I saw her leave as I went in on Wednesday. I saw her. So like my situation is not normal. It's not common at all. But yeah, so that's the story of how my jaw got so jacked up, and she still doesn't fully understand why my joints are so bad. And so the damage is one thing, and she gets that. She understands the physical trauma and the impact of it. And so I told her that I believe my joints, it's not just this one, because all my joints are horrible. Everything freaking hurts on me all the time. And so I told her, I was like, well, I did end up registering with the burn pit registry, and I do have many other disorders and diseases, to include I'm borderline lupus, right? I'm not lupus officially. Your blood has to dilute with the marker for lupus 8 times. So they take a blood sample, they make sure that you have the marker for lupus or whatever it is. It's like is it an RNA? It's like an RNA thing. And so if you have the marker, they dilute the blood 8 times, And if the marker's still there, you have lupus. Congratulations. So they get through 5. I think I'm at 5 dilutions. So they don't say I have anything. They don't say I have lupus. They don't say I have pre-lupus. They just call me Gulf War Veteran Syndrome. That's the title that they give me. And honestly, I believe it's because of I believe it's because of the anthrax vaccines. I had all 6 boosters of that, and I think it's because of the burn pits and the overall air quality that I inhaled for 37 months in combat. So that's it. That's the story of everything, and that's how I am now. And I have no idea if my jaw is going to survive for a week, a month, 2 years, 3 years. They can't guarantee me any time, but the doctor did say I will most likely have total jaw reconstructive surgery in my lifetime, which is Terminator jaw, full metal jacket jaw. So that's the story of that. I hope that helps. Oh, I have my x-rays. I'm going to try to cover up my social security. So this is before my surgery. And so if you see right here, see that dark circle, and then it comes, and then darks. This is way harder on camera than I could think it would be. Dark circle, and then right here, this is bone on bone, and this upper part was a square clashing into the bottom part. And so on both sides, you can see that there's very little space from the upper to the lower. This one's better. This is the left side. But this one, there was no space right there. That's just bone on bone, crushing into each other. And then after the surgery, here you go. So this was Wednesday. They took the screws out after this x-ray. So you see this space. The dark space is even darker, so there's more space. And you see how the space goes through. And this bone is actually smaller, but more rounded. But this is the space that they were able to inject. So they took fat out of my love handle. So this is love handle juice right here. And they shaped this bone as round as they could by hand. And this space, you can see the dramatic difference, the clearer space on this side now. So that's my jaw. That's the story of it. And to my daughter, who maybe watch this in many, many years from now, hopefully I have a really cool gray Viking goatee by then. Take care, everybody.